Welcome to Young Voices Changing the Currents. I'm your host, Haley Platt. My goal is to create a safe space that inspires students to share, inspire, and shape their futures together. Special thank you to our sponsors, Siembra Mobile. Thank you for listening today and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's dive right in. Hi, welcome to Young Voices Changing the Currents. I'm your host, Haley Platt, and today I'm joined by Alexandra Felipe, who was on the previous episode, but welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, last episode, we talked a lot about Alexander's transfer experience and, just kind of those emotions and that process. But now I want to dive in a little bit more to how the post transfer looked like being at a 4 year and just kind of the emotions surrounding that. So, just to start out, if you want to remind everyone, kind of where you started and now where you're at.
Sure. So I started at Diablo Valley College. I got two associate's degrees in business and economics, and then I transferred to Santa Clara University with a major in finance.
Great. So let's just start out. What do you think was your biggest challenge that you faced through the college admissions process? Um, and how did you overcome that?
I think the biggest challenge I faced was probably just making sure I had all of the classes I needed for my major. I wanted to make sure that when I transferred, I would be able to start my major program right away, that I wouldn't have a late start, and also that I was ready to take all of the classes in upper division for my major.
Mhm.
So it's kind of all based around the major challenges that I had. I think it's important to pay attention to whatever school that you want to go to, that your courses you're taking in community college are going to transfer over there. And they use the word articulate. They have articulation agreements on assist.org with pretty much all of the California universities. If not a California university, I would look into admissions at whatever school you're interested in, if it's out of state, and make sure that the classes you're taking are appropriate for your major program, because one, it could prevent you from getting into that school's major, and you might have to start without a major. Or it could actually just prevent you from being able to attend, since the point of transferring is typically just to start your major program in your third year. So I would suggest definitely making sure that your courses match up, and that you're ready for your program of study when you leave. But that was my biggest concern, was just making sure that I was prepared as soon as I transferred, to jump into my junior year.
Yeah, so obviously that's great advice. We talked a lot in the last episode on academic preparedness, but I want to kind of dive more into the social aspects, whether that's making new friends at a new school or your relationship with your family. Because the reality is, a lot of students are transferring from either a community college where they're living at home, maybe they're working, maybe they're taking care of a family member, where they still, you're having new experiences, but with the same kind of social surrounding that you had in high school. So if you want to talk a little bit more about that first, I'd love to hear more about, kind of that time in between.
Yeah. So just to clarify, the time when I was in community college or the time once I transferred?
Let's start with the time when you were in community college. Yeah.
Okay, so the time I was in community college, I found more of a community through my classes. I think it was great to talk to the people around me and see what people were interested in doing and where they wanted to transfer. A lot of times I like in community college, they'll ask everybody at the beginning of class, like, what are your goals? What do you want to do with this class? And as much as people find that to be a boring answer or boring question and answer after a while, it is really useful because you can find people that have the same goals as you and kind of work together, to achieve the same things, especially if that's just transferring to another college. A lot of
Yeah.
people go to the same place. So I think that it's really helpful to, one, talk to students in class always, and two, usually there's clubs that you can go to in community college. Sometimes they're kind of limited, but I joined a business club and I also joined an honor society. And I met a lot of great students there, a lot of hard workers, and that's what I love
Yeah.
about it. college is everybody's working hard, typically towards transferring or any other goals that they have. So I thought that was a great way to just meet people as clubs and in class. Sometimes even walking to class too. So
Yeah, that's great. Um, and obviously, community college, it is a different atmosphere. You have a lot of different types of people who are trying to get different things out of the process. How would you say that, the social aspect of community college differed from the 4 year?
yeah, for me, it differed a lot. I knew that when I was in my four-year university, I wanted to be very, very involved,
Mhm.
because I did feel like community college is a very independent and individual experience. College is a bit more of a community where you're placed
Yeah,
amongst people that are in the same major, who are doing all of the same clubs. So I found myself very, very involved in college. It can be different for everybody, and I would suggest making a lot of friends. I feel like making friends when you transfer makes it a lot easier of an
yeah,
experience to transition into because a lot of the students you will meet are mostly people that have been there since freshman year and can give you pointers about where to go on campus, where they like to study, where they like to
yeah,
eat. And it makes it a lot easier to just transition in. Also getting advice about teachers and classes. And usually at four universities, they have, if they have a transfer community, they have a transfer club or a student
yeah.
union. We had one, and I actually roomed with all transfers my first year when I transferred. So that was super, super useful. We all got to talk about our experiences, and kind of go through the transition together.
Yeah, it's great to hear that you found so many students that were in the same boat as you because I feel like that's one of the main ways for a transfer student to feel like they're a part of the new community and not get any sort of imposter syndrome, and just feel like they are meant to be there. I was talking a lot about this with my first guest, Melody, but basically just you have to put yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit in order to get there, which can be challenging for a lot of students. Um, but as long as you're putting yourself out there, you'll be met with the energy that you give out. And especially at a small school like Santa Clara, I always felt that people were super kind and willing to help out, and obviously excited about a student being there. Um, and obviously, the classes, is a great opportunity for students to be engaged, make new friends, and whether even they don't have to, you don't have to live with the people in your class, but just to have maybe like a study buddy or anything can help really ease the transition. And just like what you mentioned, obviously the school that you transferred to has resources for students that are coming in, so you should definitely utilize those as well. Um, so moving on a bit to kind of what you were feeling during that process leading up to the transfer. Once you knew you were going to Santa Clara, what do you think that, what thoughts were kind of circling your head? Uh, yeah, just your emotions about that.
Yeah, I think when I was preparing to transfer, I was very nervous. Um,
Mhm.
I think that kind of stays the same whether you're going to a small school like Santa Clara or you're going to a really big school. You could be even more nervous to go to a big school just because there's so many people. I will say community college, though, does have a lot of people as well. So it's somewhat of the same thing. I
Mhm.
was definitely nervous about the transition because, for example, my program of study being in finance, actually, before I was in finance, I transferred in accounting, but same major requirements. I was nervous about taking the next classes in some of the sequences of classes
Yeah.
that I took at Diablo Valley College, where I had taken my economics one and two. I took accounting one and two in community college. So then when I came to Santa Clara, I was ready to take accounting three,
Yeah.
economics three, in the next classes. And some of the professors had been the same for people, and they had taken one and two with the same professor. They're ready to
Mhm.
take three. So I think I was really nervous about taking this sections with teachers that I hadn't met before. Um, that was definitely a source of my anxiety is feeling caught up and having a different, even having a different textbook I was nervous
Right.
about, learning from a different professor. And I think that the way I I pretty much overcame my nerves about that by just sticking to what I learned at community college, which was to work independently, and to do the same study stuff that helped me when I was in community college. I went with the same methods. I
Mhm.
didn't change anything. I just worked a little bit closer with my professors, going to office hour, asking questions, and making sure that I was on the right path with everybody else. The nice part when I transferred is nobody made me feel like I wasn't ready. And I had taken the same classes as everybody
Yeah.
else. And I just had to overcome my imposter syndrome and realize, I took all the same classes as everybody here, and I deserve to be here just as much as everybody else. I
Exactly.
same major, and I am even more independent because I've had to make my way here by myself. So I think, and to kind of go off of what I just said, in terms of making it here by myself, of course, everybody makes it to college on their own, but I think it could be a little bit more of a journey having to collect all of your classes in community college
Yeah.
and be a little bit more of a challenge. So yeah, I would say that that's pretty much how I overcame it, is just finding my comfort zone and sticking to what worked for me when like before I transferred.
Yeah, I think that's great. Obviously, we're both at the end. I've completed my degree last year. You're very close. So congratulations on that, first of all. And second of all, I think it is important to share, just because you transferred doesn't mean you need to change all your study methods, because ultimately that learning process got you there in the first place. So it is great to hear that that worked out for you and you were able to overcome those emotions. Because I was curious about how those emotions actually played out and kind of where you're at now. What do you think? What advice would you give for students who are just transitioning to that period? Is there anything that you really in your mind were over hyping or anxious about that now you're like, oh, that was nothing. I shouldn't have been worried about it.
I would say my advice is to just find your comfort zone. I
Yeah.
think kind of going off of what I was saying earlier, I was very nervous that I was going to have to change my study methods. I was nervous that I was behind. And I realized that I wasn't behind. I didn't need to change my study methods. And that also a lot of people were in the same boat as me, because people transfer at all different years. Some people transfer
Yeah.
their senior year, some people transfer their junior year. For me, coming in as a junior, I realized I'm still with everybody here. I'm a junior, all of them are juniors, and I'm coming into a class of my peers. So there was not as much to be nervous about as I thought. I think going back to what I was saying a little bit before, having lived with all transfer students as well, I think when we started out, we all had imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Remember us talking about how we were all nervous about transferring and how we felt like a lot of the junior class already knew each other. So we kind of created our own friend group, but we made sure to really branch out to people though that were juniors as well, because I think there's something to learn from everybody, transfers and people that have been there all 3 years or however many years. So I would really suggest, one, trusting yourself, finding your
Yeah.
comfort zone, finding your speed, going on campus and finding places that you're comfortable studying. That was a big thing for me, was finding my spot in the library that I
Yeah.
enjoyed, or even if it's outside or in your apartment, wherever you like to be. I think just finding spaces that you feel comfortable, and finding people you trust that you can confide in, and making friends in class. I think it's all very useful, and it was definitely a work in progress. It wasn't something that I figured out right away.
Yeah, I think that's great. And obviously, you mentioned a lot of great resources that I know I utilized as well. Um, I was lucky enough I'm from Boston. I moved out all the way out here to California to attend Santa Clara, and that was a lot in and of itself. And I think I don't give myself enough credit for that, just because it was during COVID. There was a lot going on internally, externally, and yeah, it is important to utilize the resources that are provided to you, because they're there for a reason. You're not just, of course, the main reason to attend the school is to be taking the classes, but you also have a lot of outside resources and opportunities that come with that, um, that you can connect with people. I think a big thing for me was, just because of the size of the school, there was a lot of opportunities, whether that was clubs or playing intramural sports, just to kind of be more involved, and reach out to people. And I'm sure you can attest, it can be difficult no matter what age you are. As a senior, I was afraid to go talk to some of my advisors, but it all ends up working out and everyone's there to help you. So ultimately, that's the goal. And um, so let's talk a bit as we wrap things up. Let's talk a little bit more about your life post-secondary education. What are your plans for the future? Maybe give some clarity for students who have no idea what they're doing and, how you got to where you are.
Yeah, if you'd like, I can also go back a little bit on clubs and social organizations because I feel like I have a little bit more insight that I kind of forgot to involve if you'd
That's
like.
okay.
Um,
Yeah, maybe let's start talking with, kind of with your major,
Sure.
what pathways that you explored and
So similar to in community college, how I use classes to kind of figure out what major that I wanted to do. When I was when in Santa Clara, I used a lot of different clubs to kind of figure out what major that I wanted to pursue. I was
Mhm.
part of the marketing association. I was in the Women in Business Club. I joined a lot of different clubs to, yeah, women business is
Let's
great.
go, women in business.
Awesome. Also, big shout out. I love women investment too. We have a
Yeah.
lot of great clubs at our school. I think, especially being in a tight-knit small school, it really helped to join clubs because you kind of meet everyone that way. Um, I'm a big fan of joining clubs. Joining social organizations also really helped me because I feel like I had a lot of people around me that shared their paths with me
Hmm.
and told me about their post-grad plans and their major goals. And I think that really influenced the kind of direction that I wanted to go in. I actually did join a social organization. I ended up rushing for the sorority, and I had a lot of great people talk to me about what they were planning. And
Yeah.
it actually really influenced my pathway right now. Um, Being a finance major, I spent the last 2 years thinking that I was going to go into finance. And I'm actually pretty much not going into finance. I'm actually planning on
Yep.
going to school. I
That's
applied
awesome.
recently, just got into law school. So
Yay, that's so
thank you.
exciting.
So I'm very excited. I am not headed in the finance direction necessarily anymore. Maybe I'll weave it into my future.
Yeah.
Somehow, I think I will. I don't regret going to business school one bit. I am so happy that I went to business school. I'm so grateful for Santa Clara, the amazing education that I got from Santa
Yeah.
Clara. So no matter what major that you do, maybe you won't go into that major, maybe you will. I know a lot of people who have done different things with their major. I would say, as kind of a last sentiment about the whole major thing, is the only time that you really do need to be in a major specific to your career is if you're going to do a post-grad grad school that
Yeah.
requires
Anything pre-med,
pre-med.
anything. Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things where you will need it, or if you're doing a certification, if you want your CPA, there's different career fields.
Yeah.
Yes, you will need to do that major, and make sure that you have the classes you need. Or if you don't, it's not the end of the world. You can go back and take the classes still.
Exactly.
Um, so I would say, yeah, my final path was definitely towards away from my major. But it might be something that I hold on to in the future, and I'm so grateful for the education I received. So yeah, I would just
Yeah.
suggest as a recommendation, always do what you're passionate about. Maybe you don't know what you're passionate about yet, and that's something that's going to progress throughout your career and your education. But I would just say let it happen and find out what you're interested in and try to have fun too.
Yes, I think that's so great that you mentioned that because I know I was a finance major at Santa Clara as well. Um, and, kind of that just reminded me when you brought up the whole pre-med thing. I had a few friends, from all over, not just Santa Clara, who knew they wanted to be pre-med, but didn't know exactly what that looked like. And that's totally fine too. I would say my advice to those students who are listening to this, or any parents that as long as you pick something within that realm, like biology, public health, you can have, there are tons of different pathways that isn't just, I want to be a surgeon. There's nursing, PA school. So a lot of different realms. So just wanted to touch on that since we brought it up. Um, and then circling back to your major, any adult that you talk to who has been in the workforce for over 2 years will say your major doesn't matter. No one asks you what it was once you enter a job. As long as you're bringing yourself and, bringing that confidence that you have in your abilities, um, then you will succeed. And it's a testament to, I was a finance major, but I was Spanish and international business minors. That's why I love what I'm doing now because, really connecting with Spanish speaking community and more specifically, just giving students the opportunity to pursue the opportunities that we've had and been lucky enough to come on the other side of it and receive a degree. Um, I know we've talked a lot about different things, transfer stuff today. Um, but just to recap, you had your transfer experience, you had your community college, you ended up at a 4 year, now you're accepted to law school. That is just, I mean, that's just amazing. I just want to say congratulations again.
Thank you.
Because it's really just a prime example of, your path wasn't the same as your peers, but you're getting where you need to be in your head and what you want to do. So that's just incredible. So that's great. I can't wait to see what you do in the future. And just wanted to say thank you to everyone watching the show today. I appreciate your time. I know everyone's time is valuable. Thank you again, Alexandra, for being on. Your time is just as valuable as well. And just a special thank you to our sponsors, Siamra Mobile. They are helping transform the process of college acceptance and giving students equal access. And of course, thank you again to all of our viewers. Please like and subscribe so you never miss another episode. Thanks again, Alexandra.
Thank you so much.
Great. Have a good one.